So Dispelling Exhale often will be an answer to this, but Andrea might not always have the mana up for this, especially since he's looking to tap out on turns 4 and 5 for these powerful effects, such as, Beza, Day of Judgment, Shiko, etc.
Beza is a great way to also come back from a position where you are behind, so very good against.
It's built for that, yeah. It's
exactly.
Perfect for it.
And players shuffling up, let's see who's going to start.
I used to hate Beza because, my aggro draws just I can never get through it. But now, after one game with Jeskai control, I love Beza. Beza,
Simon,
my friend now.
Officially a control player since playing this Jeskai. So if that Jeskai can convert you into a control player, I believe that we might see doing fantastic things here this weekend. As a reminder, this is the first round that we are showing, but it's actually round 2 of the tournament, and players are 1-0. Looks like Andrea starting here, so...
Looks like a 2-lander as well, so... No, 3-lander. Okay, he's fine.
Starting here with a claw already. So, hired claw for Philippe, going to start dealing some damage. 2 men up from Andrea.
Essentially, I mean, there's a Lightning Helix in Andrea's hand, so he can, if he wants to, just go ahead and clear out that hired claw. Of course, you don't want to clear it out just now. Like, you can just take the 2 damage, use your life total as an advantage, and if Felipe goes to, for instance, pump it, then you can kill it. If Felipe plays a better 2-drop, you can kill that. So using your life total as an advantage to just take a little bit of damage and then set yourself up for a better position to use your answers better. Usually a good idea when playing control. And here we see stock up.
I mean, I feel like this is one of the few cards from Aether Drift that actually see a lot of standard play. And what a card. This card is fantastic at giving you exactly what you need against every matchup. So Mengucci, looking at the top 5, chose 2 of them forehand.
I think Mengucci was looking for white sources here, because you can see he only has 1 white land and it does have temporary lockdown in hand. But here we see Felipe saying, showcasing why you don't need Terza in this deck, because Rockface Village turns all your 1-drops into 3-power haste creatures. Yeah,
very strong there with a hard fire hero, so Felipe immediately dealing some damage.
And there was the second white source for Andrea, but cannot play the lockdown yet. Of course, like, doesn't want to either. It's just a single mouse at the moment. Andrea also chose to play Ride's End in his list instead of playing full 4 copies of Get Lost. And Ride's End, another one of the cards from Aether Drift that actually, surprisingly, it's the commons and uncommons that have had an impact on the metagame.
That's true.
But this one, essentially just a 2-mana way to exile an attacking creature. The exile clause on this card is often extremely important, especially when you look at Heartfire Hero, that when it dies, can deal a ton of damage to the opponent.
Exactly, so here not getting the advantage from cards like Up the Beanstalk, but being good just exiling stuff. And let's see what Philippe can do. I know there's a Lightning Strike in hand, also a couple of lands, so... Mengucci is still pretty high on life.
Yeah, so no, Mengucci has taken some damage. I believe that like our life totals are not being correctly shown at the moment, and this is huge. Felipe choosing to play the Sunspine Links into the open mana, Andrea having one of his 4 counterspells here to get rid of it. I believe that Andrea should be at... He's at 16 life, I think.
Yeah, so still maybe pretty high against the mono red.
Didn't need a 5th land though to land this Shiko. That would have been a huge like turnaround if you could play Shiko, get back the Lightning Helix, kill off that Heartfire hero. But Felipe just seems a bit land flooded here and has to just rely on the Rockface Village, hoping that his Heartfire hero goes through, but nope, Ride's End will take right care of it. And actually Felipe has a line there to use Lightning Strike to kill his own Heartfire hero, dealing 4 damage to Andrea, essentially turning your Lightning Strike for 1 more point of damage, but of course giving it a little bit less flexibility, so makes sense to not just go for that at the moment. Okay, there is an Emberheart Challenger in hand, and that's actually quite interesting, and I think quite well played by Felipe. Usually the Emberheart Challenger, it is at its best if you just hold it and wait, and try to play it when you have a lot of lands and have a Rockface Village. If you play that as your last threat, this combination will make it, you just have this like card draw engine, and even if the opponent kills your Emberheart Challenger, you will have gotten a card off it already.
And Simon, looks like Philippe actually picked up Manifold Mouse as the draw for the turn.
Yeah, so you could actually also just go ahead and just land that mouse. But I think he's deciding to go for Ember Heart Challenger before playing his land drop. This is a decision you can... Okay, so Andrea, with the Dispelling Exhale in hand, could counter it by revealing Chico and asking Felipe to pay 4. But instead, Andrea says, no, I'll keep my counterspell for these Sunspine Lynxes.
Wow.
The open deck list playing in huge here for this control deck, allowing you to line up your answers however you see. And Andrea saying, yeah, I can let this challenger resolve. I can maybe even take the damage here, go to, I believe, going to 14 of this attack if it hits. Instead of risking that there's a Monstrous Rage, saving the challenger from Lightning Strike. So you could go end of turn, Lightning Helix, and then even if there is a Monstrous Rage, you can untap and then play Chico and try to Lightning Helix again.
Yeah, so let's see what Andrea Mengucci chooses to do. I mean, in a very good position here with a lot of options. And just letting the damage come through. Yeah,
as we see, Andrea was indeed at 17, now takes 3 damage down to 14. Right, so we have the life totals are up to date now. The timer seems relatively up to date. It is round 2 though, not round 1, just a clarification. But yeah, this is our warm-up round while we wait for round 3 to start, when we actually will start our official coverage here.
Another Manifold Mouse was the pickup here for Philippe. Now, playing one with Offspring, so let's see if that does resolve.
So interestingly, Andrea chose to not use the Lightning Helix at all, just like untapped all of his lands and then spent a lockdown on this challenger, not allowing Felipe to use a Monstrous Rage. And this is a good enough card where Andrea says, okay, I don't want to also have to spend my Day of Judgment on this Manifold Mouse. Now I will use Dispelling Exhale, revealing Chico to counter this unless you pay 4. And I wonder if it's time to just play Chico and stock up here.
Yeah.
Because Andrea's out of counterspell, so there's no point in holding up the Dispelling Exhale anymore. His life total is high enough that even if a Sunspine Lynx come down, it's not the biggest of an issue. And Chico, like, drawing 2 cards when it enters the battlefield like this, it is so powerful. You can even find an untapped land and change the equation if you wanted to have extra insurance against that Sunspine Lynx. But it seems like he did not find the counterspell.
Get Lost land.
So that's a Get Lost, and sits there with the Chico in play.
You know what? I can see, Simon, now why you like this card so much.
It's
value.
It is massive. And you know what the best part of the card is? Look at that size. It's a 4/5.
It's true.
How much damage do these red spells deal? It's like, you know, you can kick Burst Lightning for 4 damage. Yeah. It still doesn't take down
I think
Chico.
only Frenzy is the card that can deal with this.
And it has Vigilance, so you just attack for 4 each turn, still can block with it. It doesn't take very long before the opponent dies. All right, so here we see Felipe, Offspring and on a Manifold Mouse here, pumping up the token, giving it Double Strike and Trample. So this is a unassuming 2-1 Double Strike attack here. Could get eaten by the Chico, but of course, if there is a Lightning Strike, Felipe can let First Strike damage resolve, then Lightning Strike the Chico. So I think Andrea is actually saying, yeah, I'll just block, see if you have a Monstrous Rage. Felipe says, I'm just going to pass priority.
Yeah.
And then Andrea says, okay, I know that's Lightning Strike then, so now I'll use my Lightning Helix to take care of this. Go back up to 17. Another Lightning Helix drawn. Another stock up. Let's see if we can find the counterspell to really lock up this game. No counterspell yet, but just a Besa and even another Lightning Helix. Like this deck with the Chico and the Helixes kills the opponent really quickly.
I can see that, and honestly, I'm impressed on how strong this deck is. Now we have the Besa as well.
Just gain 4 life, nothing else. And also, something that was really funny to me when I played with this deck is that I would expect Day of Judgment to be incredible in a control deck, or even gets a treasure token.
A treasure, and then look, the mono-red deck having more lands than the Jeskai control deck. That doesn't feel good for Philippe, I'm sure.
Definitely not a good position to be in.
Yes.
So yeah, this Besa coming down, gaining 4 life, Chico attacking for 4 as well. But yeah, I expected Day of Judgment to be amazing in this control deck, but spots like this just happen all the time, where your board is just better than the opponent's board.
True, so activating the land there on the Manifold Mouse, we saw Screaming Nemesis, that is going to enter the battlefield.
Right, so Felipe can do the same line he did before with threatening the Lightning Strike, but actually Andrea does have the opportunity to just double block that Manifold Mouse, so that even if Felipe uses the Lightning Strike to clear one of the blockers, you still take it down with the other one, even through the first strike damage.
So...
And since last time, like, this is a bit risky though, because if Felipe has Monstrous Rage and was patient last round. From Andrea's perspective, right? Remember what happened last round. The same attack here happened. Andrea said, I'll block. Felipe said, no reactions. And And then Andrea killed it. So Felipe could have actually still had a Monstrous Rage, and Andrea says, yeah, I'm just going to take the damage here, not risk the double block into Monstrous Rage, just expecting that maybe Felipe was just playing well and not playing the Rage into the open mana anyways.
Very patient. Now we have the Get Lost on the Screaming Nemesis.
And yeah, like, look at this board state. Like, you also don't need to like try and block and take care of these creatures when you have 8 power in play and your opponent's at 16. And you have 2 Lightning Helixes in hand as well. Like, Felipe is so close to dying at this moment.
Yeah, this deck is extremely good at not only having answers, but also applying pressure, which I feel like some control decks do lack. So we have here game 1, Andrea Mengucci winning and showcasing why Jeskai control is surging into standard, and Shiko being a card that impressed me. But honestly, Simon, Stock Up impressed me even more.
Yes, I mean, the Stock Up, and also this deck even gets to play more than 4 Stock Ups, because it also has the new Saga, Rediscover the Way, which lets you like look at the top, when it comes into play, you look at the top 3 cards, choose one. Next turn, look at the top 3 cards, choose one. That's even better than Stock Up.
Yeah. So you get to play multiple copies of getting to see exactly the spell that you need, and working out really well here for our players. But now let's take a look at the sideboard. Philippe will be on the play, which we know is very important for these red decks to do, especially against control decks. Now, there's a card, Temporary Lockdown, that we saw that punishes if Philippe decides to be like, okay, I lost this game, I'm going to try to go as fast as possible, but then there's temporary lockdown, a Day of Judgment. How can Philippe manage this situation against Mengucci?
So actually, Felipe doesn't have that much of a sideboard in his matchup, because the main sideboard card you have access to is Sunspinelings, and those are in the main deck. He does have 2 copies of Case of the Crimson Pulse. So that's the case that lets you, once you solve it by having no cards in your hand, it starts letting you draw essentially 3 cards a turn. And so that is the card that, you know, Felipe could bring in to have a, like, more essentially late game power to get through these big dragons. But there's also 3 copies of Lethal Mantic Barrage, and this is an answer that you might bring in over stuff like Lightning Strike or Burst Lightning, because it actually can kill Beza and Shiko.
For just 1 mana, right? So
just
pretty
1 mana, yeah.
efficient there. But yeah, as you said, sideboard from Philippe's side, we see a lot of removal spells as well. Against probably the field that we saw all these prowess deck, all these aggro decks. Now Jeskai control, I'm sure, is ready on the sideboard against so much aggro that we see in our meta breakdown. What can Mengucci bring from the sideboard?
So from Mengucci's side, it's just the 2 Authority of the Consuls. Those are the main cards you're bringing in here. There's also another copy of Beza and another copy of Change the Equation, which I assume both of those will come in. Change the Equation, of course, a main deckable card, because even against decks where it doesn't play red or green, like Esper Pixie, all their cards cost 2 or less, so it still can counter anything you want to counter. Except for, I guess, this town ain't big enough. And then there's also 3 copies of Tishana's Tidebinder, which I'm curious if Andrea will bring in. It is not the most obvious sideboard card against Dread, but it does have some applications. Like, you know, if they trigger their Heartfire hero, you can then Tidebinder Mage counter that, and now their hero is just stuck at whatever size it was before, can't gain any more counters. Or you could just use it against the Manifold Mouse Offspring, just counter the Offspring trigger, and essentially you just dealing with their 2-for-1 card with just your own card, since the Tidebinder itself can trade with their remaining copy of Manifold Mouse. So there's a lot of like small things it can do, like countering the Screaming Nemesis trigger so you don't lose the ability to gain life, countering the Sunspinelings enter the battlefield trigger. There's actually a lot of triggers going on in Felipe's deck, so I think maybe we might see the Tishana's Tidebinders come in as well, maybe shaving a bit on some of the top end of this control deck, like the Meringue River regions. Probably don't need 3 copies of those into this matchup.
A card that I saw in Andrea Mengucci's deck that is not particularly good against this matchup, but I just wanted to talk with you about it. We've seen a lot of Rest in Peace, because we see a lot of decks that utilize the graveyard, like the Omniscience deck. We have the Jeskai Oculus, but here Andrea decided to, instead of Rest in Peace, bringing could tilt flanker instead. Oh, but we are right here. I can ask you later about it.
That's fair.
We start.
The answer to your question is that you can't play Rest in Peace with Chico.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Very smart. It would be a nombo.
All right, we see a High Claw leading the battlefield here once more, but this time Felipe on the play, so can get in a clean attack with this little guy before Andrea gets a chance to answer it. And Felipe, instead of playing it slow and trying to just buff up his creatures, is saying, yeah, I'm just gonna place things to the board and see if you have that temporary lockdown to catch you back up, because if you don't, you're in trouble.
And already a lot of things in the board. Philippe doing exactly what he wants to be doing, but Andrea...
It's a lot of lands in Andrea's hand. And I think that's a counterspell and a Lightning Helix and a Chico. So if there's a Screaming Nemesis being played here by Felipe, which I believe will be the play, because it doesn't get hit by lockdown. Yeah, Felipe just trying to curve out, saying, even if you answer this, at least I get the 4 damage in for my other creatures. Andrea having a think here. Oh, it's not a counter spell. It is a Tishana's Tidebinder. So yeah, just deciding to go ahead and clear off this Hyatt Claw. It's pretty funny. There's a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop in play, and Andrea could point that removal spell at any one of them, deciding to kill the 1-drop. That speaks a little bit to the power of this card.
That's true. Double strike there on the mouse, so 5 damage went through.
That was a great pickup from Andrea here. Rides and being able to deal with this Screaming Nemesis. And I think Andrea's just going to go ahead and do that main phase, just making sure that you don't give Felipe the opportunity to spend a Burst Lightning on his own Screaming Nemesis, dealing 2 damage to Andrea with the trigger, and then denying Andrea's ability to gain life for the rest of the game.
Again, Philippe seeming a bit flooded. Like game 1, I felt like Philippe did have a lot of lands. Now the same. There's a Manifold Mouse, I think, in hand, and then a couple of lands.
Oh, and Philippe does not want to expose that Manifold Mouse to a sweeper here. It actually would have been a good spot to go ahead and land that, but of course, Philippe doesn't play with full knowledge.
Ooh, but look, now there can be...
Yeah, because I think the only reason Philippe was able to make this play is because of this Soulstone Sanctuary, which lets him develop onto the board. This is still protected from, oh, that is funny, Tishana's Tidebinder, countering the ability of Soulstone Sanctuary. Yeah. It can still be animated on Philippe's turn. It does not lose any of its abilities, but essentially just taking away 4 mana from Philippe and making it a little bit harder for him to play out the game exactly how he wants to do.
And another reason why the card is so good as well against this deck, we see Lightning Strike in Philippe's hand, 1 Mountain and 1 Manifold Mouse.
So Philippe might have to just go ahead and animate the Soulstone Sanctuary again, attack with it, then use the Lightning Strike to clear off the Tishana's Tidebinder, getting in an attack for 5. And utilizing the Vigilance ability of Soulstone Sanctuary. And I think that is exactly what he's going to do.
I think he heard you.
Oh, but he doesn't have the land drop, of course. Yeah, so he doesn't have the mana to do this. Has to just roll in with this, decides not to attack with the Manifold Mouse, only offering to trade up with the Soulstone Sanctuary. And, right. Of course, the Soulstone Sanctuary is a mouse. So what happened there is Philippe chose to give double strike to the Soulstone Sanctuary, attacking for 6 with it, and Andrea immediately just protecting his life total, valuing that over the Tidebinder, chump blocking with it, and now has the opportunity. I think his hand is Chico and 4 lands, but that might be good enough because Chico is just again so big and board dominating. You're gonna gain your 3 life when you Lightning Helix either of these creatures. I think he's deciding which of these 2 to hit with a Lightning Helix, or if he should try and. I guess he doesn't have. Yeah, he could also the stock up that he put in the graveyard on turn 1 of the Surveil. Did he do that? I think he did that. Is now available to be flashbacked with Chico, and Andrea saying, yeah, it's just not good enough for me to just clear one of your creatures at the moment. My life total is high enough. I can take this damage from the Soulstone Sanctuary, or I can block it with my Chico. This double striking Soulstone Sanctuary, of course. And
yeah, going for the value play.
After that.
And getting the Get Lost and Temporary Lockdown from that stock up. The other 3 cards were lands. They went to the bottom of the library, so...
Oh, now we see a Sunspine Links from Felipe, and of course there's this pesky Plains in Andrea's board. There's not that many basic lands in Andrea's deck. I see 3 Plains and 2 islands only. Only 5 basic lands, but Andrea does have 1 of them here, and we see this attack from Felipe here. So Giving double strike to, I assume, the manifold. Did you see where he pointed? I was looking at my deck.
I think it's the mouse, but I'm not.
That would make sense then, yeah, because then you can use the lightning strike to take care of the Shiko. So that's exactly what is happening here. And actually, Philippe can now tap the Soulstone Sanctuary for mana to play this lightning strike, take care of Shiko, just deal 2 damage with a.
Oh, looks like the double strike was on the.
The double strike was on the Sanctuary. Okay, that makes more sense. So it's interesting with the Manifold Mouse attack. I think Felipe was just saying, yeah, if you just want to block my mouse, you just take so much damage and you risk dying to a Monstrous Rage. So Andrea said, yeah, Andrea figured that he couldn't actually take that risk. And so this little attack with the Manifold Mouse, I mean, this is the sort of way you can try to play red decks, where you make attacks that you know are bad, right? Like Andrea could have just killed your Manifold Mouse, taken 6 damage and killed your Manifold Mouse for free, but doesn't know the exact contents of your hand, and so Andrea can't like actually do that. And by attacking with the mouse, it meant you did 1 extra point of damage. Now, whether that damage actually matters here is to be seen. The Sunspine Links dealt with here with the Get Lost, then Temporary Lockdown sweeping up the Manifold Mouse and the map token, and then followed up with an Authority of the Consoles. Andrea now starting to gain life right back, but doesn't have any gas or any pressure. Has to rely on these Surveil lands.
Yeah, not great, but again, like that Authority of Consoles is able to slow down Philippe a bit.
It is a little bit, but not actually that much. Because, I mean, of course his haste creatures don't work anymore, but his cards still hit pretty hard. And Philippe actually saying, these 2 Manifold Mouse attacking for 4 each turn is enough pressure. I don't want to extend my Heartfire hero here into a sweeper. And I think that's pretty well played because of the lightning strike. Wow, the Beza here. All right, so yeah, that is based.
Create 2 fish tokens.
And gaining Andrea for life. Sadly not bringing a treasure this time. That is unfortunate. It's also not drawing a card, right? Because I think Andrea still has... No, it is drawing him a card. Because Andrea had just 1 card in hand and drawing into a counterspell here. So that was actually an opportunity there for Philippe to use the lightning strike to Andrea's face just to ensure that no card was drawn. But of course, that gives you a lot less flexibility, and then you lose your ability to break through the Beza. So
yeah, and this is definitely changing the equation here with this Beza.
Wow.
Amazing in this matchup now, attacking with both mouses. They have double strike.
So if Andrea goes ahead and blocks the Beza on this Manifold Mouse, you can kick your Burst Lightning here in the first strike step and just hope. Yeah, so you see first strike damage resolve. Now kick the Burst Lightning, but Andrea picking up that change the equation is absolutely massive in this moment, and will mean that Philippe's attempt to get rid of Beza does not work. Of course, the second fish does get to kill the Manifold Mouse offspring token. The little mouse child got murdered brutally by a fish, as it so often happens in these rural areas. And now we see, you know, Andrea saying, yep, this is a race I'm happy to engage in. Yep. I have no cards, you probably have no cards. Let's just attack for 4 and against your 1/1 mouse. But the 1/1 mouse is very quickly not a 1/1 anymore. Another Manifold Mouse being top-decked here. Putting a counter on Heartfire Hero, giving it double strike, zooming in for 4 damage.
Very good, that Authority of Consoles again being able to delay a bit. Stock up value.
This deck is like this Jeskai deck just has so many good top decks. It is just so good. Oh wow.
I am convinced.
I am never attacking with a creature that costs less than 3 mana again in my life.
Oh wow. That's a big statement.
Yeah, you will if you ever see me do that, you should know that it's not me.
Clip this Twitch and YouTube.
Clip it. Stand by it. There's 5 spells as well that Andrea can pick and choose between here of this stock up.
A lot of options.
You know, so there is a temptation to just pick 2 more stock ups of this stock up and just keep it going, but Andrea being a bit more disciplined here. Taking the lockdown, which actually will clear his own Authority of the Consoles, saying, I don't need that anymore. And honestly, the lockdown in this deck is so powerful because you have these big threats that don't die to your own lockdown. So even though Andrea was in a losing race situation here, the lockdown is exactly what he wanted to hit, letting him just control this race now. And yeah, Felipe, just with a lightning strike in hand, can't clear this base, is going to die in 3 turns. Andrea also picked up Tishana's Tidebinder here to counter any like Sunspine links, which is honestly a threat at the moment, right? Like Andrea has 7 lands in play, so Felipe with the Sunspine links could spell a lot of trouble for Andrea. Oh, that is a Lithomantic Barrage, so I guess we play on.
There it is, taking care of that base that we talked about. This card, very good sideboard.
Interesting. So Andrea can actually play out both of these Tidebinders here and attack for 6. He could also just play out one of them and say, I'm gonna win, not right now, but next turn. And so that's like kind of interesting. I think he's going to keep one of the Tidebinders here for that Sunspine links in case. If Philippe has two removal spells in hand, it would be brutal if he played out both of those Tidebinders and then Philippe top decked 8 links and just dealt you so much damage. Oh, and there's the links. So we see Andrea being paid off here for keeping that Tidebinder. Felipe, not surprised, given that Andrea played on the first.
Chico now as well. Wow, look at the value.
That is so strong here.
Wow.
And I guess you can get back the Get Lost potentially, or just get another stock up. Why not? Why not look at even more cards? Find your other way to answer this links. You don't even need to answer it because Chico is winning in the air next turn. Oh, and there's even, you can even take a Lightning Helix and a Ride's End here. So you could clear up this links, attack for 3, and Felipe down to 1 life with you having Lightning Helix in hand. There might not be any way out for Felipe at this point. You see Andrea here counting his number of lands. Can he survive another Sunspine links here? And says, I'm not gonna try and put you to 1 here. That is too aggressive. I'll just make sure that like no surprising thing can happen. If you attack with the links, then I can clear it with Rights and then I can use my Lightning Helix to gain life in case your last 2 cards is Burst Lightning and Sunspine links.
So exiled there.
And yeah, this means Andrea is clear to make this big attack here. Chico plus stock up, the combination taking out the game, and Andrea taking down round 2 here.
Wow, I am impressed. Simon, what a way to start here, the Ultimate Guard Regional Championship in Bologna. As a reminder, we have 8 rounds today, and this was round 2. Yes. Are you surprised by this matchup, and are you very impressed by this Jeskai control deck?
I mean, obviously I am. You know, now I've seen 2 games with the deck, right? The one I played on Arena and the one Andrea